our communication skills, our ability to delegate, to empower our team, to create safe spaces and healthy cultures, and make sure stuff gets done, right? Those were really difficult lessons for me. And I look at leadership and communication skills as lifetime journeys. And I've been fortunate to be surrounded by very smart people and have opportunities along the way. For me, it's taken a conscious prioritization of developing those skills and continuing to develop them. They're never done.
Today, I'm excited to talk with Warner. He and I are both part of the Entrepreneurs organization, which is an organization that I think does something really well in that they scale trust. The second you meet somebody who's an EO, you're like, okay, I can go deep with you. I can be vulnerable with you. I can talk with you. I know that you're going to protect my confidence. And I feel like that's going to be one of those conversations. The other thing that I'm excited to talk with him about is he has a tech background. And in the conversations of alpha and empathy, tech tends to be a lot more binary and logical and sequenced. And yet we have people who have to operate the tech, and the people are more nuanced. So I thought this could be a very interesting conversation. So, Warner, I'm super excited to have you here. Welcome to the Rooted Founder Show.
Oh, thanks so much, Stacy. My pleasure to be here today.
Yes. So I want to start kind of at the beginning for you. When did you realize that you were going to be an entrepreneur or a business builder or a business owner in some way?
Oh, I think I've always had a bit of an entrepreneurial bent. It's interesting, being an EO maybe has helped me understand that better, having a group of people who share values. And one of the things I love about EO, it's people who build and learn and travel, and travel is a form of learning.
Mm-hmm.
And while that bent of independence, wanting to build and improve and change things for the better, I think is very entrepreneurial. And those are things I identify with. Of course, I have similar stories that many of us entrepreneurs have of starting small, albeit to varying degrees of success, businesses in my youth and things like that. Admittedly, I was more passionate about the application of innovative technologies early in my career, and entrepreneurship in some ways was secondary to that. I, I, I do think entrepreneurship is a great platform to drive change and create value and make impact. And those are things that really resonate with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I talk with a lot of entrepreneurs who have similar stories where they were super passionate or curious about something, and then it organically turned into a business, but it was pure curiosity in the beginning. Now, with your evolution as I was curious about innovative technology, and then there was a turning point where that turned into a business. What walk me through that journey?
Well, I started working with tech in the early days of the internet. And one of the things that impassioned me about it was the ability to talk to people all
Hmm.
around the world. And this was pre-web, early web. So back then we used news groups, Usenet. And I thought it was just so cool to talk to people around the world who were smart and just wanted to share and learn. And from there, internet technologies were really driving change, and that was exponential in those times. And I had wanted to start an internet service provider, and the market was starting to get commoditized. And I'm like, well, this seems boring. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have used those words at the time. Boring, maybe, not commoditized. And just looking at where tech was changing, that led me to websites. Back then it was company.com, right? And well, to no surprise, the companies that were really driving and leading change at the time, and true to this day, were startups. So even having interest in entrepreneurship before, with my priority in the moment being using leading technologies and using them to make an impact, those who were doing so were entrepreneurial companies. And that's really where I grounded my career.
That's so interesting. So I feel like you just said something profound and it's totally natural to you. But when you talk about innovation, especially technological innovation, you're suggesting that a lot of that is driven through startups, not from big corporations. Tell me why you think that.
Well, whole lots of experience. I have so many random narratives and talking points, anecdotes about that. So I'll try and summarize and just get to the point. And I think a good way to look at it is in our professions, our expertise, if we think of what those jobs might look like in a large traditional industry corporation, and what they might look like in a small, scrappy, younger company that's driving change, the ability to do new things quickly
Yeah.
is much more limited in a large organization. So I think it's really natural. A lot of the companies I've helped build over the years, business to business software as a service companies, we were finding niche problems that were a big deal for the industry, but the industry was anywhere from 10, perpetually 10 to 20 years behind in technology. That was really our opportunity. It's
Mhm.
not that they they could certainly, a large company could certainly organize resources and dedicate to them,
Mhm.
but to actually execute on a quicker timeline, still
Yeah.
very difficult.
So, in light of like you were curious, then you had to turn your curiosity into some type of monetization through scrappy startups. Then you had to figure out how to turn your scrappy startup into a business that was scalable in some fashion. How did you get yourself to do that? Not the tactics of what you did, because there's endless how-to videos on how to build and scale organizations. But the thing is sometimes like just like dieting, right? You know how to eat right and you know how to exercise, but you still can't get yourself to eat right and exercise. People have ideas that they want to turn into business ventures. They're curious about something that they know could help people and they could be financially rewarded for it. How do you get yourself to take the idea, take action on it, and then rally people to join you?
I think there are a couple different lines of thought on this, depending on the stage and maturity of a company. It's very different at concept stage or founding stage versus growth stage, where a company is scaling. And I do think there are some themes where it's easy for us to get in our own way. And often the things we do that limit our organization's growth are things that limit us as leaders and people and managers as well. If it's an idea, well, a big thing is it's not just an idea. If it is, that's not a business. It's solving a real problem that the market, our potential customers, need
Mhm.
solved. And then much later, assuming we're solving a problem and doing it well enough that we're providing value and people keep on wanting it, when we're growing a company, how do we get out of our own way? It's really difficult to either get caught in an idea where this is a problem I want to solve for me, as opposed to the market, or later in an organization get caught on tactics and execution, things that are mine, and not wanting to delegate or empower team members.
Mhm.
At a certain stage, where we're truly in growth mode, the market wants what we're solving, and we found product market fit. If our ability to delegate and empower team members as the organization scales and get out of the way is directly correlated to our company's ability to grow.
I totally agree. And I've done this way right and I've done it way wrong. Have you had a similar experience? Or have you done it all right the whole time?
Oh, shoot. Absolutely not. Yeah, well, when I talk to engineers, they're often maybe really passionate and really skilled about something, and they reach a point in a career where they're like, I have a bunch of experience. I want to be a manager.
Yeah.
Why? And often achieving their goals wouldn't necessarily be achieved through that career transition.
Mhm.
And it's a complete career shift. It's a new job. We don't, at least in engineering circles, typically talk about it that way. And
Mhm.
all those skills that we developed as engineers are fundamentally different as a manager.
Mhm.
Our communication skills, our ability to delegate, to empower our team, to create safe spaces and healthy cultures,
Mhm.
and make sure stuff gets done, right? Completely different things. And well, those were really difficult lessons for me. And I look at leadership and communication skills as lifetime journeys. And I've been fortunate to be surrounded by very smart people and have opportunities along the way. For me, it's taken a conscious prioritization of developing those skills and continuing to develop them. They're never done. And without that mindset and without that focus, it certainly would have been very limiting. And I tell this story of the engineer, but I think philosophically that applies to the entire conversation we've had as
Mhm.
it relates to empowering our team members, empowering our organizations at scale. Doesn't matter if we're an engineer turning engineering manager or a founder who needs to truly turn into a CEO to enable our organization for growth and long-term success.
Mhm. You're an engineer background, right?
Yes, my background's technical and well, focused in tech and cybersecurity.
Yes. So you personally had to go from being an engineer doing solo engineer tech work to then founder CEO, right? Is that accurate? Okay.
It's completely true.
I have to imagine that that internal psychological journey was intense for you. And I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I'm genuinely asking and I'm imagining because engineers are very logical. It's if-then scenarios, black and white, very, very, very binary. And I even some ways feel like I'm not an engineer, but like on culture index, I'm an architect. My logic is, I'm so logical. So sometimes I'm just like, when a problem happens in the business, I'm like, okay, what happened? Who did this? What happened here? What? And I just want the information so that I can clean it up and make a better system. But sometimes people would interpret that I'm like, well, you did that wrong and you did that wrong. And I'm like, no, 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 nobody did anything wrong. I'm just trying to get the data so that we can make a decision. Have you gone through that journey? Like, how did you change your brain to, or did you just put your brain in a category on a shelf and then was like, okay, empathy come out over here? Like, how did you do that?
I love the thought and the question. I'm also an architect with very
Okay.
high logic as well, as far as culture index is
Hmm.
concerned. It's fun. I hear a lot of anecdotes in EO. We like EOS or Entrepreneur's Operating System,
Right.
Business Operations Framework. And with EOS, folks love to say they're visionaries and need integrators. And I'm told, at least within Culture Index, architect is one of the few archetypes where someone can serve in both those roles. And at
Yep.
least personally, I'm very confident in that. And where the company is right now, how we're operating, and I plan to continue operating for some time. But you described it so very well. I early in my career journey, I spent a whole lot of time learning how complex systems work and how to make them work. And in many cases, those things are binary. There's might be multiple ways to do it, but when you're doing a specific thing, it's either right or wrong. And like you, high logic.
Yeah.
And I've always valued people, and I'm certainly empathetic now and considered myself empathetic in the past, but the way I interacted with people, it wasn't perceived that way. And I'll just ground in it was very much a journey, and I lots of management training, leadership training, executive coaching,
Yeah.
reading a ton of books along the way. I've since learned that some companies have really good leadership development programs in those organizations. While I was provided development opportunities in the organizations I was with, and I am grateful for that. None were super refined by any means. I think I've talked to some people who went through programs like that, and they were very valuable, but it wasn't an easy path. I was reflecting maybe a few years ago, and it hit me. It's like, oh, I'm an executive now. It's like this intangible thing that I'd spent so much time trying to define and develop skills to enable success in that role.
Right.
As nebulous as it is, even though we talk about things, what is executive presence? Okay, well, what is it? And
Right.
certainly you'll find folks to tell us, but it's this intangible thing. And I'll say it just comes down to learning and practice over a long time. And
Mm.
a lot of those things are natural now, but they were not at one point.
What do you think was the turning point? Did you read a book or did somebody tell you something? Or what was like it where it clicked in your brain that my job is to think and develop people instead of do and manage process? When did that shift come?
Yeah, I keep on grounding in journey because I don't think there was any single inflection point.
Hmm.
And I remember very early in when I first served in a management role, we talk about stuff like that all the time. It's not about us as the manager, it's about the team, and it's helping them be successful. And I acknowledged and understood that. But really, what does it mean? It's when I'm staring at my peer managers around a table and I'm being held accountable for results. And when I know it's how to do the thing as a engineer turned first time manager, it's really easy to just do the thing.
Yes.
But my job is to help the organization do the thing. Do we have the right team members? Do we have the right resources? Are we supporting it financially in the right ways? Does it make sense to support it financially from a business perspective? I knew the anecdotes, but for them to become real, it took experience.
Hmm.
And maybe it's different for others, but it wasn't a sudden thing for me.
Did you? So one of the things I do is I coach visionaries and integrators. And I have watched a lot of founders go through this evolution because one of the things is when you do it, like you said, you're the engineer, you know how to do the thing. So there's a couple of benefits from that. One is nobody can pull a fast one on you. They can't tell you it's going to take longer or cost more because you know exactly how long it's supposed to take and how much it's going to cost and what resources are needed. So that's an advantage of it. The kind of the shadow side of that is it can be intimidating just by being you because they all know that you can do it. So then they feel like maybe this like powerful force is watching me do it. And so how did you in those, you're sitting around the conference table, you're having a discussion on the thing, you know exactly the thing that needs to be done, how to do it, and who should do it. How did you bite your tongue, or however you sat there did you ask questions instead of telling them what to do so they could connect the dots in their own head? Like, those are some things that have worked for me. But
Mm.
what did you specifically do?
I was meeting with one of my senior team members. It was a project coordination meeting, and he was telling some other team members what to do. And I was reflecting on it real time
Mhm.
because, well, uh, and not thinking of people as people, but as things as binary, it's
Right.
easy to treat them that way. And asking questions is a great approach, and one I commonly use and encouraged my colleague to do so later privately. I think of it more in the context of healthy people-centric cultures, right? I I work with the best, I hire the best, I spend time with the best. They have tons of experience. They know a ton of things, and they should be empowered. They don't need to be told what to do. They need to be given context and supported and given resources and helped along the way. They might not have the high level business strategy view, or they might not understand nuances of relationships as it relates to delivering a solution,
Mhm.
but they sure as heck know how to do their job. And if they don't, well, maybe we can find them some training because not everyone knows everything. It's not my job to help them understand how to do the detailed parts of their work, but it is my job to support them and ensure they have the resources and context they need to be successful.
Hmm. So I like to think of leadership or just even humans in general. We have two parts of us. We have like the dreamer who wants to, I don't know, get our private pilot's license. We want to get scuba certified. We want to travel. We want to build a business. We want to get married. We want to have kids. We want to have this home. Like we have the dreamer in us. Then we have the doer in us, the person who takes the dream and makes it a reality. And that every human being has that. And then our businesses have it. And you talked about EOS, so visionary integrator. So we have those two dynamics. Then we have I like to think of the doer as more alpha. They're the one that just gets shit done. And then the dreamer is more in the clouds, esoteric, just that kind of energy. So when you're working with engineers, I would think, tend to be a little bit more doer mentality than they are empathy. Is that accurate?
It is.
Okay. So is in an engineer world, is it condescending or a little, I don't know, like you mismatched if you bring too much empathy to certain conversations? Or have you found even in an engineer world, having the empathy and the people-centric is a difference maker?
It absolutely is a difference maker. I think, well, there's folks who aren't neurotypical, and everyone has different approaches. Everyone's their own person. So not to discount that.
Right.
And I think that's super important.
Mhm.
It, speaking more generally, well, I've helped build healthy employee people-centric engineering cultures. And back when I was helping build a health tech company, we went from about 20 folks, headcount, employees, to 500 in less than 4 years.
Wow.
And part of how we scaled was, well, we hired the best, we
Mhm.
empowered them, and
Mhm.
we got out of their way. Even when we had more headcount, we didn't have complex management structures. Certainly, we had managers and
Yeah.
people who were helping the team, but we didn't have 5 layers of management and unnecessary approval processes and creating a bunch of bureaucracy. It was about empowering the team, giving them what they want. In my company now, Gamma Force, we are relatively small, certainly not 500 people. However, in my team of about 10 now, our benefits package exceeds a lot of companies that are much larger than us. And it's been incremental. We're 5 years old as of last July. I prioritized adding the things that the team cared about. What makes their lives better? And one of our company values is we're always learning. If a team member wants a book or a certification or a training class, uh, my default answer is yes. So are those things focused on just getting stuff done, getting their tasks done, achieving company and departmental objectives? Certainly not. It's really about the person. And I think all humans value stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I've not met any who don't.
Yes. Yes. Learning and growth too gives an ROI to the company as well. So there is definitely a give back feature in doing that. I love,
Win-win-win.
yeah, win-win-win. The leadership journey, like you're saying, is just it's always ongoing. And then it's so nuanced because who even if you hire A players or when you hire A players, you're still bringing in a human being who has their own past thoughts, behaviors, belief systems that are getting integrated into a business unit, which is kind of like a community. And leaders create community, and community creates behavior. And so we're constantly, as culture leaders, trying to create behaviors within our organization that feed the ultimate goal, but also serve the individual.
Back at the health tech company, we like to tell stories. In business, we talk about culture in so many ways. Get your culture framework and do this and that. And I think often those things miss the mark. We told a lot of stories, and that's how our culture and values
Yeah.
scaled over time. And one thing we always like to say is we treat people like responsible adults. And we did. We didn't have policies for things that were unnecessary. We didn't add approval processes and friction to disempower the folks we just hired and we're excited to have on board. And I think philosophically, all these things are aligned. And maybe a company wants a healthy culture, but then a manager, leader, entrepreneur might be focused on what they care about. I
Mhm.
like working in an office, so I want my team to
Right.
be keeping the seats warm. And oh, I don't trust them, so I'm going to install a bunch of software and monitor their every move on the computer. Well, I question that context. Now, we can all operate differently. And if you're a CEO or building a company, you have a lot of influence on how that company operates. But ultimately, these things we focus on, I'll tell you what, having a conversation with our team, listening, and then acting on it, that makes more impact than any monitoring software I've ever seen. And well, it's easy to say, well, a small company can do that. Well, shoot, I've seen it scale to over 500 folks, so I've seen it work.
I agree with you so much because really, if you think of what businesses are, communities are people. That's relationships. The thing that we'll say over and over again in our lives is that trust is the most important thing for a healthy relationship. You go to a therapist, a counselor, a coach, I mean, anybody, everyone says trust. Yet, if you over process, then you lose trust because you're saying, I don't trust you, so I have to tell you exactly what to do. Well, if that's the case, then could we just automate that position? We wouldn't need that human. And so, in a way, our over processing and micromanaging and monitoring is actually telling the person that we don't trust them, which is actually reinforcing the same pattern that we're trying to avoid. It's disempowering, it's not empowering.
And it's a productivity killer.
It's a
So
productivity killer. Yes.
if we have skilled knowledge workers with 10 plus years of experience making 6+ figure salaries, and we're disempowering them, the meaningful and tangible impact to the business is huge.
Significant. Yeah. So since you are in tech, I feel like an interesting conversation would be how much do you automate and use AI and then empower humans to be auditors, controllers of technology versus the other way around?
Well, it's interesting. Like I said before, part of my background is cybersecurity, and that's really our core business at Gamma Force. So we work with tech companies and health tech companies and help them with cybersecurity strategy. Everything we do starts with strategy. It's not just applying tactics. Anyone can apply tactics. Putting that true executive hat on, Chief Information Security Officer, CISO, and in the security field, it's very common for security professionals to want to tell people in organizations what not to do. And certainly those are things we need to be cognizant of. We probably shouldn't be putting confidential company information in public spaces. That's an easy one. Most of us can agree about. Well, being a security professional, but also working on the leading edge of technology, it's not about stopping an organization from doing something. It's about how we do things in a way that is responsible and professional. So when it comes to leading technologies, we're often using them. And I look at it as how we can empower our colleagues, the humans in the company, to
Mhm,
do the most impactful work, where they add the most value.
mhm,
And as far as use the technology, not use the technology, it's more about how to use it to create the most value in a way that's responsible and
mhm.
managing risk in a security context. And it's really just that simple. And well, I watched the internet get to where it is today, and I look at emerging technologies that are making big impacts in the same time, in the same context.
Mhm.
We removed a lot of data entry work throughout the 90s and early aughts. I can't name any organizations that still have tons of employees doing manual data entry, transcribing paper. They might exist, I can't name any. And I look at it as the same way from a people perspective. But I do think it's up to us to consider the people as part of it, and the decisions we make, the tools we use, how it impacts them.
Mhm.
And the humans are frequently creating the unique value, the competitive advantage. So it's not no humans or some humans, it's just how we approach things to create the most value in my mind.
Right. I also, tell me if this resonates with you. I also feel like the things that technology can do, so we'll use the data entry example, are some things that people don't find that fulfilling. So it's kind of a fair trade because humans enjoy creativity, innovation, thought expansion, but they also enjoy predictability. So I feel like technology gives that baseline of predictability, which allows humans to be more expansive in our creativity and our thought thinking, while also integrating to a baseline. What are your thoughts there?
I couldn't agree more. I don't use Calendly, tech guy. It's easy to solve people. Well, I think it's easy to make mistakes trying to solve people problems with tech. And certainly shared calendars have a lot of value, but what I found was that removing the people from the conversation created its own set of challenges. So I'd much rather have a team member help there. The thing is focusing on the highest value stuff, and that's the bottom line. And with change and with technology evolution, it's creating opportunity. When the change is happening, it's easy to get caught up on the emotions of the moment, but I think there's a ton of opportunity for all of us.
Yeah. So you mentioned EOS, and they have a tool called Delegate and Elevate. I actually recreated that and created a whole spreadsheet and introduced my own little angle to it. And I created a column that has like automate, eliminate, trash, that categorizing system. And then also just how to delegate. So in your business, being that you're tech, being that you're integrating your alpha and empathy, being that you're really cognizant of the people-centric culture while also leveraging the innovation of technology, how do you decide what, like the Calendly example, what gets automated versus what doesn't?
Well, most things tactical in the business are automated. That's how we started. And it's really the default. We have, from a business productivity perspective, we have a ton of modern tools out there. Any of us can use them right now. And people are still part of it. Most of accounts payable and accounts receivable is fully automated. But there's still a person who monitors it and ensures that it's operating effectively.
Mhm.
But what that is a whole lot less administrative, low value routine work. And that's really how we approach everything we do, not only in the business, but the work we do with our clients. A lot of the work we do on the execution side is helping automate it. Now, what the processes we create, it's not about, and it might be written, not always, but sometimes, but these processes are guides. We're not building teams around them, we're automating it. So what that does is it gives higher skilled professionals, engineers, financial people, business people, the space to focus on higher value activities. And I think that's really the biggest opportunity we have, not only as individuals and entrepreneurs, as companies. It's a really cool time.
Mhm.
I've been paperless 20 years, but it's because I've been stubborn about it. Now it's really easy to be paperless, right?
It's so fun. I'm really excited about all the technology and stuff. I love your two default modes. One is if your employee or team member asks you for a book or a training, your answer is yes. And your other default mode is if it can be automated, it's automated to elevate people.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. What projects are you most excited about right now?
I, Great question. It's interesting. There are so many things going on in the business right now. Strategic for the business, we're doing a lot to operationalize and prove out a strategy for growth, and working with some great folks there. And it has a lot of potential, and is likely to make a big impact. And then with the company growth is coming more opportunity for team members. So we've been maturing and scaling a lot of our operational processes, and team members are taking more lead and being more empowered. So Lots of fun things going on in our world at Gamma Force right now.
Yeah, that's exciting. How would you define success?
When everyone wins.
I like that. Where can people find you if they want to connect and hear more of all the projects and success you're working on?
I'm always happy to chat with anyone regarding topics like this or otherwise. Hopefully something I can chat about, but if not, I'll do my best. I'm available, Warner Moore, on LinkedIn.
Non-detail oriented at all. So this was wonderful. I enjoyed having you on, and I look forward to hearing from you on LinkedIn.
Been such a pleasure, Stacy. Fantastic conversation. Thank you.